Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to another edition of Talkin Ball. I am lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn, my man CJ Vogel, always doing a great job, working hard for us at ontexasfootball. CJ, how's it going, brother?
Good. Another week. We're getting close to spring ball, but hey, the combine was rocking. A lot of Longhorns in the headlines, and I'm ready to get to it.
Yeah, and of course, we're not going to bury the lead. That's what we're talking about in Talking Ball. We're talking about the combine performances. So many great showcases for the Longhorns to celebrate. And of course, we'll start with Xavier Worthy and his record-breaking performance, setting a new 40-yard dash record at the NFL Combine with a 4.21. We'll dive into it. We'll hit all of the different Longhorns who represented at the Combine. There were 11 of them. Not all of them did not test. They were all in attendance, so we will talk about that and break it down. Before we do, though, let's show some love to our fantastic sponsor. We're very grateful and indebted to John Donovan, the president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. He is a proud Texas Exes Life member, and his wife and all 6 of John's siblings actually are also proud UT grads, lifetime Longhorns, like me and my man CJ. John is also served over 15 years as a Texas Exes board member and is a certified financial planner who has spent over 30 years, 3 decades providing investment, retirement, and insurance and estate planning services and solutions to all of his clients. So it is this long history and deep connection to UT that explains why John has dedicated his firm to providing total wealth management for Texas Exes, alumni, employees, family, and friends. John wants to remind all Texans that tomorrow is election day. So please get out and vote. We need to keep Texas strong and independent, and your vote matters. Likewise, your vote is the only one that matters when it comes to your own financial future. So John Donovan would like you to hit them up because he's offering a free 90-minute consultation to explore how the Longhorn Wealth Team can help you make the right vote with your finances to ensure your own financial future is strong and independent. So what are you waiting for? Give him a call today. You got nothing to lose, but you got everything to gain. Give him a call. John Donovan and his Longhorn Wealth Team, 972-707-4900. That's 972-707-4900, or visit longhornwealth.net. That's longhornwealth.net to take advantage of the free 90-minute consultation to explore how they can help you achieve true financial independence, much like Xavier Worthy just secured with his NFL combine record 40-yard dash. So hook them, and thank you to John Donovan. All right, let's start there. That's still everybody seems to be talking about is Xavier Worthy and his breakout record-setting performance. Let's just go over the numbers real quick, and then CJ, I want to get your thoughts. You weighed in at 165 pounds, only was at 5'11", 5'11", a little over 5'11", I should say. Hands, 8 3/4. His arm length, 31 inches and 1/8. 40-yard dash, 4.21. NFL, that's a new NFL combine record. His 10-yard split was a 1.49. Vertical, 41 inches, which is unbelievable. He's explosive, to say the least. 10-11 broad jump. He did not actually participate in the 3-cone drill, the 20-yard shoulder bench press. The assumption is he would do those at Texas Pro Day. But CJ, first overall in the 40, first in the 10-yard split, 4th among receivers in the vertical jump, 5th among receivers in the broad jump. I mean, 5'11", 165. What more can we say about Xavier Worthy? What I liked about the performance, first and foremost, CJ, was that he ran a 4.25 initially with the first attempt, and then came back, told the sideline reporter that he intended to break the record. That's why he was running the second time. Shows me 2 things. Number one, first of all, this guy had to be in practice running low 4.2s with regularity. Yep. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have had the confidence, hell, damn near the cockiness and arrogance to say 4.25, I could do better than that. If you think you can do better than 4.25, that means you have done better than 4.25. So I don't know what he's running in workouts. I'd like somebody to ask him when they get a chance, because that would be mind-blowing. And number 2, what a lot of NFL scouts, I'm sure, appreciate about it, the competitive spirit of one Xavier Worthy. To go to that second attempt to put on a show. That's what they want you to do at the combine. Put on a show with all the pressure, with all the lights on. And there was a lot of pressure on next man, especially after the assumption was he's got to run 4.2. I think a 4.3 would have been disappointing for a lot of people with Xavier Worthy. He's clocked as the fastest player in college football by real analytics at 22.7 miles per hour. And not only did he exceed expectations, but under the mounting pressure, we saw him at his best. NFL scouts love that.
Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head. Absolutely. I mean, you talk about it coming into the combine. What was the one thing we wanted to see with Xavier Worthy was how far into the 4.2s, or could he eclipse 4.3, And if he did, how far would it go? Well, we saw it. 4.25 was the fastest mark of any player at the combine after his first attempt. And, I think there's a lot of chatter after he ran that first 40 was, shut it down. I mean, you just showed what you needed to do. You know, you came out here and ran 4.25. What I think that would have been the third, tied for third fastest 40-yard dash in the history of the combine.
Yeah.
And then he says, you know what, basically hold my Gatorade bottle because I'm about to go do it again. And this time I'm going to run a 4.21. And I thought it was remarkable. And you could tell it meant something to him, which is something I don't think a lot of people are touching on right now. When he heard that he had broke the record, I mean, you saw the look on his face. He's like, there was a reason for why he wanted to run that second 40. And there's a reason for why it meant so much to him. And it really was impressive. I mean, 4.21 that's remarkable. You talk about the hundreds and thousands of combine attendees over the years through the last decade or so of the combine. I mean, it's remarkable that he was able to run 4.21. And again, any questions about the football player that he is or the competitor should be out the window right now. 4.21 with the production that he had in college.
Yeah.
Welcome to the first round, Xavier Worthy.
I believe so too. I think yes. Listen, I'm not saying that all the metrics say first round pick for him, but when you run that fast at the NFL Combine, it's just pretty, I don't know. To me, it's a pretty safe bet that some team out there is going to move you up their draft board. You're going to become a dream scenario, almost a fantasy player for some GMs out there. So I think so. I think, listen, we saw Mel Kiper put him 32 to the Kansas City Chiefs in his last mock draft. Matt Miller had him going in the first round of his last mock draft. And Matt Miller says he believes he's a first rounder now, and there will be 8 receivers potentially taken in the first round. I like what Les Snead said about him. Did you hear what Les Snead, the GM of the Rams, said? Because his son, is it Tate Haver, I believe it is on the Texas football team. And his wife, Karen Henderson Snead, she tweeted out that Les said that Xavier Worthy was the fastest human he's ever evaluated. And he said that he's not just a guy that runs fast 40s, but he plays that fast too. And I agree, he does play fast. He's faster than he plays because nobody can play at 4.2, but he does play really, really fast. And so congrats to Xavier. I would say there's one little knock on Xavier Worthy. The size. Everybody came in lighter except for T'Vondre Sweat. T'Vondre Sweat came in heavier. He was probably the only guy, but everybody else came in lighter. And when you're 165, think about it. John Ross set the initial record 23 pounds heavier than Xavier Worthy. Ooh. You look at Brian Thomas, the receiver from LSU. He was 209 pounds. He's 40. What is he? 44 pounds heavier than Xavier Worthy, pretty much. Hell, A.D. Mitchell, 205 pounds, ran a 4.34. Brian Thomas ran a 4.33. So get ready for the narrative. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, because the knock on Xavier Worthy is going to be simply he is so slight and he is so slim that he may not be able. His game may not translate to the NFL. The physicality, the presence. Does he have that type of, with his play speed? Does he also have the ability to play through contact? Whether it be as a ball carrier or whether it be as a route runner. I think he can. I'm not knocking him, but I will give you these stats from recent history of players with his size. He basically has a 23 body mass index. That's a combination of your weight and your height. So he's going to essentially, when they give out speed scores, because they combine weight and height and all these different things, your speed scores, Xavier Worthy is 9th under the speed score. And that's all because of his weight. If you go look at BMI, body mass index, he's the 9th lightest receiver at the combine since 2000. Wow. With a 23 BMI. If you look at the top 50 lightest receivers at the NFL combine since 2000, you're talking about only one that has become a 1,000-yard receiver. Now, that keep in mind that Devontae Smith didn't perform at combine. He was at his pro day. So he's also in that same slim, slight category. I think Devontae Smith BMI was a 23. So he's 23.1. So he's right there in that same range. He also is a 1,000-yard receiver, but there are not many 1,000-yard receivers who have that frame and that slight of a build. Also, I heard we talked about this last week. The fastest receivers in history of the combine, the top 25, only one 1,000-yard receiver among that group, and that's Santana Moss.
Yeah.
Speed does not always translate to NFL productivity. It does translate to draft status. All right. You do get bumped in your draft status, but it doesn't always translate to NFL success. Here's my question for you. Is Xavier Worthy a 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL at one point in his career?
I mean, for most of these wide receivers right now, it's all dependent upon where you fall in the draft.
Yes, it is.
If DeAndre Hopkins or Julio Jones came out in the draft and ended up in a place where you've got a Kenny Pickett or a Desmond Ridder throwing to him, is anybody a 1,000-yard receiver? That's the biggest question mark. If for whatever reason, if A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy falls to 32 or even 28 to the Bills, now I think you're looking at it a little differently. Like, how high can they go? Because they have established quarterbacks. With that speed that Xavier Worthy possesses right now, I also think it's big to go to somewhere that offsets the speed. If you're able to have a Stephon Diggs underneath, if you're able to have a CeeDee Lamb outside next to you, that allows you to kind of stretch the field vertically, whereas you're no longer that number one focal point. If Xavier Worthy ends up on the Panthers, who is there to, really offset him? He's going to be that number one focal point for defense to hone in on. And that was the issue that we saw early in his career as well. Texas force-fed Xavier Worthy the ball so often that teams were like, all right, like, who else is going to beat us? Because it's not going to be Xavier Worthy. And now if we take him away, what can you do to get, yards and points put up on the board against us? That's going to be the biggest point for me. But I have to imagine whoever ends up with Xavier Worthy is going to look at him and say, wow, we've got ourselves quite the weapon, and we can't wait to unleash him. And I'm ready to see what kind of creativity offensive coordinators in the NFL use with him, because now it's not so much the wide gap of speed that we saw at college in times. Sarkisian did a great job of creatively using him, whether it be the orbit motion returns that we saw sometimes out of the backfield, just beating guys to the angle or out of the backfield. We saw it every now and then with Sarkisian. I'm ready to see what that next level will be at the NFL, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun career to watch with Xavier Worthy now that he's in the National Football League.
Totally agree with you, and I will say this about Sark. Really, Sark has provided the blueprint, even to the NFL, of how to utilize these slim, slight-ish, small-ish speed demons. Even with Devontae Smith, you take a lot of the same concept that Sark likes to use, targets to motion, putting those guys in motion, a lot of things that you just talked about. I think, if you look at, I talked about this before last week, 24 wide receivers with a body mass index of 25 or less since 2000, drafted in the first 2 rounds, but 10 of those 24 have come in the last 3 years, which means there is a changing perception of those small receivers. And honestly, it was Steve Sarkisian who I believe started this phenomenon of these small receivers being weaponized, because after Devontae Smith was drafted, I think 10th overall, more and more teams started to draft those types of receivers higher up, rounds 1 and 2. Used to save those guys for round 3 through 5. But now teams are willing to spend more draft capital on those guys. So I think they know how to use them because inspired by creativity like Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, if you look back at, Alabama, you mentioned, Devontae Smith, obviously, but Henry Ruggs was not a big dude. John Mechie, not a big guy. If you go back to Washington, the guy that we talked about earlier, John Ross, that was a guy who was recruited by and played for Steve Sarkisian during the time up in Washington. Yeah. He was the originator, the 4-2-2 guy that Xavier Worthy just broke. So I think you're right when it comes to the certain type of playmaker that Sarkisian likes, and now the NFL mold certainly starting to adapt it a little slowly, but more and more each year we're starting to see it. And that's perfect for Texas and the way that Texas recruits wide receivers under Sarkisian.
Yeah, no, Sark has a type. I always say, if you look back at all my ex-girlfriends, you'll probably notice a trend. Big booty brunettes. And I can tell this trend with Sark is small is speed demon receivers. No question. Even look at the group he just recruited right out of the transfer portal. All right, so there you go. Xavier Worthy, best in show, if that's possible, at the NFL Combine. He definitely gets that. Let's move on to A.D. Mitchell, who also had an amazing performance. This guy had the 3rd fastest 40 time out of all the wide receivers. He was first in the broad jump out of all the wide receivers. I believe he had the 8th best vertical if you look at it. His 10-yard split wasn't great or elite, but when you run a 4.34, some people, they don't ask about the 10-yard split as much anymore, right? He measured at 6'2", 205. He actually only has smaller hands than I thought, 9-inch hands, 32 and 3/8-inch arms, ran the 4.34, as I said, with a 1.52 split, 39.5-inch vertical, pretty damn good. 11 for a broad jump is amazing. Did not test any 3-cone, the 20-yard shuttle, or the bench press. I think A.D. Mitchell also solidified himself as a first-round pick. Yep. He was hovering around there with a lot of analysts, but I think he cemented himself as a first-round pick. What I think Scott's love about this guy is that he's a big game performer. No question about it. 5 college playoff games and scored touchdowns in all 5 of them. This guy shows up in big games. What are your thoughts about A.D. Mitchell and what he did for his draft stock at the Combine?
I mean, he was the winner of the Combine until Xavier Worthy ranked. That's how it was. He was – if Xavier Worthy was 1A, he was 1B in terms of Combine winners. Running a 4.34 at that size, I was amazed. I was way off, obviously. We've talked about the predictions, but I was not expecting a 4.3. I was thinking somewhere, in the mid 4.4s would be tremendous. For him to clock a whole another 10th off of that time and end up with the 3rd fastest 40 of any of the wide receivers there, added with the production and the great hands that we've seen with the drop rate that is amongst the best of anybody in the Combine or draft this year. What more are you asking about when it comes to A.D. Mitchell? He plays well. He does not drop passes. He can run with the best of them, and his routes are tremendous. That's an all-around wide receiver for me, and I'm eager to see if he does fall to that back half of the first round again, where he's kind of being mocked right now. Again, he's going to a playoff team with a great quarterback situation. Both of these guys should be thrilled that they're not ending up in the conversation right now for a top 10 pick where they're going to a place where the quarterback's not great, the system isn't great, and all of a sudden you're looking at a team that's not going to be able to compete. A tremendous, tremendous performance by A.D. Mitchell at the Combine. He was aside from Xavier Worthy, he was the Longhorn that really stood out to me the most. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Ryan Watts was actually number 3 for me.
Yeah, that's really good. He had a hell of a day too, no question about that. People don't realize this was the fastest Combine for wide receivers in the history of the Combine. I want to throw that out there. The average speed for wide receivers in the 40 was a 4.44. That's the best since 2000, I think, when they started keeping track of it. And Xavier Worthy, like I said, his speed score, when they combine height and weight and all these other things, his speed score was 9th, even though he ran the fastest 40. A.D. Mitchell's speed score was 3rd best overall. Wow. And he actually had the 6th best 40 time overall. That included DBs and everything. So, it's unbelievable for him at that size to run a 4.3. I thought he would get into the 4.4s and that would guarantee him first-round status. No, he actually went and got 4.3. So I think there's no doubt he is a lock to be in the first round because now the film, I think, will back up at least the 40 time can back up the film that, yes, he does have that straight ahead speed, that straight line speed. Sark just didn't use it a lot because Sark didn't necessarily need it because you got Xavier Worthy, you got JT Sanders, and you got so many other weapons. I did read a tweet from Warren Sharp. I think you read this too, Warren Sharp. He said since 2015, there have been 2 NFL wide receivers at the Combine to run a 4.35 or faster, measure at least 6'2", or taller, and have a weight of at least 205 pounds or heavier. DK Metcalf and A.D. Mitchell. Yeah, it's pretty good company to be in.
Pretty good.
That's really good. So A.D. Mitchell, yeah, he made himself some money too, no question about that. Let's talk about JT Sanders at the NFL Combine. Now, JT Sanders, I thought could have helped himself a ton at the Combine, increased his draft stock. I will say this, I don't think he hurt his draft stock at all, but I'm not sure that he wowed anyone at the Combine with the drills and the workouts. He did have huge hands, 10 inches and 1/8 inch hands, 32 and 7/8 inch arms. He had a 40-yard dash of 4.69, which is not bad at all. I thought he would have a faster 40. 10-yard split of 1.59. Now, that actually is pretty impressive. He did have the 5th best, if you look at it, 5th best shuttle, 20-yard shuttle at a 4.32. He was 6th among tight ends in his 10-yard split, which wasn't bad. But I said his 40 was 9th among tight ends, measuring in at 245 pounds and measuring at 6'4", 245 pounds. What are your thoughts about JT Sanders at the Combine?
Yeah, I didn't think the times necessarily jumped off the page, but I did think it was big for him to come in officially at 6'4". It's not 6'3" and a quarter, not 6'3" and a half. He did hit that 6'4" mark, which is what NFL teams, they're very by the book when it comes to measurements and times, And so, Rod, you certainly can attest to this as someone who, might have wanted a couple inches or 2 left on his height back in the day. But JT Sanders coming at 6'4", That's big for him. Matt Miller actually had a tweet as well, who we refer to pretty rather often here. He said that he ran the cleanest, most efficient routes of any tight end at the draft. And I think us having watched him for the last 3 years kind of expected that. He is very, very polished when it comes to running routes, when it comes to catching the ball deep down the field. That's what he does. He has tremendous hands. He has tremendous route running ability. The time doesn't jump off the page again. But, hey, if you're able to watch the eye test and then compare it with the film, what more do you want of a wide receiver right now in terms of going down the field and making a play? He is going to be in that conversation with the Brock Bowers to be the 2 best tight ends from this class. And certainly the hands, the contested catches is going to back him up time and time again when the tape comes back on.
Yep. And he talked, if you listen to him in interviews, he said basically talked about how often he likes to block and how enthusiastic he was about blocking and how much of a priority it was for tight ends at Texas. So he understands the scouts. One of the negative narratives that may be hurting him right now is he a willing blocker? Is he an effective blocker? Because Brock Bowers, they'll have blocks on his highlight reel. They'll have just blocks on his highlight reel because he's got pancakes on his highlight reel. He's got blocks where he's basically putting guys on their back. He is an elite blocker as well as an elite receiver. I think JT Sam's an elite receiver, but a serviceable blocker. And I think he knows that may be one of the negative things on the scouting report about him. But I don't think he hurt his draft stock at all. I still think he's going to be the second tight end off the board. Ryan Watts, I'll kind of give you the floor on this one because you thought he really improved his draft stock. And I did too. You go look at Ryan Watts. Let's go look at his kind of the rankings of some of the drills that he did. First of all, he's measured in at 6'3" and 208. You talked about how important that is. Trust me, as a guy that went from 5'10", 5'11" on the Texas program and Texas Media Guide to 5'8" when I went to the combine. And then scouts got mad at me. They were like, Babers, why'd you lie about your height? And I'm like, I don't lie about my height. I don't make the media guides. I don't talk to John Bianca. I don't know why the hell they gave me 3 inches. I appreciate them giving me 3 inches. All right. Trust me, as a man, every inch counts. That's why I manscape. All right. So we need all the inches we can get, but I didn't lie about my height. They assume you're lying about your height. And by the way, A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy was shorter than what their listed heights were in the media guide. I don't know why some guys are taller and some guys are the actual height. I have no idea why. I don't know who's putting that stuff in the media guides, but he did measuring as legit 6'3", so that helps. 9 3/8 inch hands, 34.5-inch arms, 40-yard dash, and a 4.53. That's important. The split was 1.55 for the 10 yards. That's really good. A 40.5-inch vertical. That's outstanding. Broad jump of 10.5, 3 cones, 6.82, and a 20-yard shuttle of 4.13. His 40 wasn't, it wasn't outstanding, but it was good enough for him at 6'3". He did have the 6th best vertical among cornerbacks. He had the 2nd best cone drill and the 4th best shuttle. So his change of direction and short area quickness were unbelievable at the combine. Straightaway speed, okay. But, man, when he got into the 3 cone drill and the short shuttle and the vertical, which shows your explosion, those were among his best drills. I'm with you. I definitely think that there's going to be a team out there willing to take a chance on a developmental project like Ryan Watts going from corner to safety.
I mean, you look at those numbers and you think this is what you want from an NFL defensive back. Lengthy, can run, can change direction. Again, I think for me, Rod, seeing the change of direction times and how they compare to the other DBs at the combine, I'm sitting there thinking, whoa, where was that? At times I was thinking this might not have been the same guy, but to his credit, the work that he put in previously leading up to the combine, it paid off. And I saw a lot of conversation, a lot of chatter about where his draft stock now sits because he was a guy that was kind of on the fence. He had several productive years at Texas, but was it enough? Did it end kind of choppy enough at the end to where he fell undrafted? Right now, I think you look at the combination of the snaps that he played in college, the measurables, and then the combine, and now you're sitting there thinking, yeah, there's no way this guy doesn't get drafted. And how far up those boards does he go? Because there was even some day 2 chatter in there, which a little premature for me, I think, right now. But again, a 6'3" cornerback running low 4.5s with a 40-inch vertical, with a 1.55 10-yard split. That's really, really impressive. He was a big winner for me from the Texas group at the combine. And man, I'm really happy for him because even coming out of the East-West Shrine game, there was questions. It was like, all right, we saw the top end speed, but can he piece that together? And where does he fit on the field? Right now, it doesn't matter. Some team is going to take him because of this combine performance and say, we'll figure out a spot for you that fits your skill set and what we need. And you're going to go play football for us because you're a great athlete.
Based off the architecture of the Legion of Boom, which Pete Carroll, as you know, and Dan Quinn built that defense off length.
Yeah.
It was built more of length and then speed. A lot of teams, they prioritize speed and then length. It was like, no, we want long range defenders. They believe long arm length and wingspan actually could equate to a faster 40. That's basically what they believe. Like basically an extra inch of wingspan arm length is a tenth of a second in a 40-yard dash, whatever you want to believe. That's their theory. And that theory is still popular in the NFL. I heard Mel Kiper talking about it 2 weeks ago. He said, no, his favorite, and he says his most dependable data point evaluation is length, wingspan, arm length. He said that's what he looks at. And Ryan Watts, he's got that. He's got length when you look at him. And I'm with you. I was shocked by his short area quickness and change of direction. I'm with you. We now know, which is a limited pool of talent late in the draft because you have so many underclassmen that are now staying in college. But because of NIL, you only had 58 underclassmen declare for the NFL draft this year. That number is close to half of the average of the prior last 5 years. So you got you have a pool of talent now that isn't as expansive and isn't as deep as it once was. That also will help a guy like Ryan Watts later on in the draft if a team is thinking about taking a flyer on him because you just don't have the depth of talent that you usually have in the NFL drafts. So that'll help Ryan Watts too. Okay, let's talk about some more performances. Once again, feels like Texas just had so many different guys that had really good performances at the combine. Let's talk about Jaylen Ford really quickly. Jaylen Ford didn't test everything. He actually ended up not testing for most of the stuff out there. He had a vertical and he had a broad jump, which I pretty much think that was the gist of it for Jaylen Ford coming out. And even though he tested earlier on, this is a guy that still may end up being drafted in the middle rounds. He measured at 6'2", 240, 9.5-inch hands, 31 and 3/4-inch arms, no 40, no 10-yard split. Vertical was 33.5. Broad jump was a 10-foot, 1-inch broad jump. Didn't do anything else because I think he tweaked something on one of those jumps. What are your thoughts about Jaylen Ford and Jaylen Ford's draft stock?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to see a lot of him. I think the pro day for him and Jordan Whittington are going to be massive to see what ends up happening with them in their draft stocks. But yeah, the vertical wasn't bad. The broad jump could have been a little bit longer, but hey, if you get tweaked up, things get limited very quickly. He did meet with the Giants, the Rams, and the Cowboys in Indianapolis. Something to keep an eye on because, again, teams need linebackers. Linebacker is basically the running back of defenses. You see a lot of change over time there, and it happens very quickly at the NFL level as well. So to get a guy with the smarts and the intelligence of Jaylen Ford, to get him kind of in that draft capital spot right now in the mid rounds, I think teams are going to be looking for him very often.
3 through 5 is kind of where I see teams starting to look at Jaylen Ford. And I think it'll be closer to 5. I think it'll be closer to 50 now. I'm looking right now. Christian Jones. Let's talk about Christian Jones for a second. Christian Jones might have made himself some money. I believe it's Peter Schrager, who does it was a Good Morning Football show. He said that this is the deepest O-line draft in decades, like really deep O-line draft. I was actually a little surprised to hear him say that. But when you think about it, Christian Jones, who's right now looking to be one of the linemen drafted. A lot of people are predicting that Christian Jones will end up as a guard in the NFL. That's what he's projecting to. 10'5", 8-inch hands, 34.5-inch arms. He measures 6'5", 305. Every bit of 6'5", 305. That's important. 40-yard dash or 5 flat, which honestly, when I see guys that big running 5 flat, to me, that's the freak show. That's unbelievable. Yep. 10-yard split of 1.78. He had a 3-cone drill of 8.09. 20-yard shuttle of 4.78. Did not do the vertical, no broad jump, no bench press. I'm assuming he'll do those at the pro day. But considering a lot of people are projecting him to be a guard in the NFL. I believe that a lot of his skills will naturally translate. So he's going to be a bigger athletic guard in the NFL as opposed to being probably a less athletic tackle in the NFL. Yep. They believe his highest upside is at guard. Nothing really jumps off the page to you in terms of his workouts and his drills. He did come in lighter. He played at around 318, 320, but came in at 305. Christian Jones, right now, it's hard to gauge where his draft stock is, but he's going to get drafted. There's no question about it. I do believe that depends on how many linemen are drafted early on and when there's a run on linemen. What are your thoughts about Christian Jones' draft stock?
Yeah, absolutely going to get drafted. Had a lot of momentum in his draft stock following his performance in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. Carries that over to now, puts up some pretty solid times, 5:05, good shuttle. Good agility drills there too. Again, the move to the interior is going to be big because the question mark around the bench press is going to be what teams look at specifically because he does have the wingspan, and he does have the ability to play outside. We saw it during his time at Texas. He got better every single year. That's exactly what you want to see. But again, I do think he's better suited for the interior. And hey, for Christian Jones, so to use that soccer background that we've talked about in the past to his advantage with these mobility and agility drills, really, really important stuff. The big thing for me is, again, how much weight does he want to add before the pro day? If he does add any at all, that 13-pound difference from Mobile when he weighed in at the Senior Bowl to the Combine, significant. It was something that stood out to me, but I thought he had a pretty good Combine, pretty good showing. And again, he's going to be a guy that interviews well and continues to move up boards the more and more that he's able to get in front of scouts and executives.
Totally agree. Keilan Robinson. Let's talk about both of the running backs. Keilan Robinson weighed in 191 pounds, 5'8", 9 and 5/8 inch hands, 30 and 5/8 inch arms, 40-yard dash and a 4.42, probably a little slower than a lot of Longhorn fans thought. 1.51 10-yard split, had a 33-inch vertical, broad jump of 10.5, did not participate in the 3-and-cone drill, 20-yard shuttle, or the bench press. But Keilan Robinson, he was second in his 10-yard split among running backs, fourth in the 40-yard dash. He's the best kickoff returner in this draft class. People don't not really sure if he's going to get drafted, but if the NFL changes their kickoff return rules to the XFL kickoff before the season starts, mark my words, he may not be drafted, but he will be a priority free agent for a team because he could get you a lot of hidden yardage in the kick return game in the NFL if they change the rule, and all momentum seems to be moving toward them actually changing it and voting on it in March. If they do, teams will start to prioritize the return game again, make kick returns great again, and he will be a big part of that movement, my man Keilan Robinson. So he's better be praying that the NFL changes that kickoff return rule for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, for a low 4.4 in the NFL, that still plays. You know, there's still plenty of guys that can't run that at skill position. So a very solid time. And again, going back to the NFL.com athleticism score, he was the 5th ranked athlete at the running back position in the combination of all the skills and drills that they underwent and in the Indian. Oh boy, struggling here in Indianapolis for the Combine. So a solid showing again for Keilan Robinson. Again, I think he wants to run a little bit better than that at the pro day. Yeah. But again, with the rules changing, that's kind of on the horizon for the kickoffs in the NFL. There's certainly enough there for a team to take a shot on him to add him to the roster before the season.
Jonathan Brooks obviously did not work out. All the reports are that his rehab and recovery are way ahead of schedule, and he's going to be ready for training camp, which is just big time. Yes, big. He measured in at 6 foot, 216 pounds, 9 1/4 inch hands, 31 1/2 inch arms, but did not participate in any of the drills. Obviously, medical evaluation is big for him. Interviews big for Jonathan Brooks. Any thoughts on Joe Brooks? He still seems to be the top running back on everybody's board, even though he hasn't worked out. I don't even know how that is possible.
No, it's not a great running back draft class this year, but for Jonathan Brooks to be, about 4 months removed from an ACL injury and still be sitting atop of the NFL draft boards at the running back position, massive for him, massive for Texas, and Coach Tashard Choice and what he's able to do in the recruiting side of things. Jonathan Brooks did have a formal meeting with the Green Bay Packers in Indianapolis. Teams only get about 44 of those, I believe, and so that's really important to see that one of them went to Jonathan Brooks because there's a lot going on with that running back conversation in Green Bay at the moment. We'll see where that falls. But again, right now, I think you're looking at an early 3rd round pick for Jonathan Brooks right now, depending on where everything else falls during his pro day and going forward with his recovery.
Yeah, that's good stuff and I think Jonathan Brooks right now, man, he's got to be ecstatic that he's not dropping down on draft boards, even though he hasn't been able to work out. So not a miracle, but it just shows you how impressive his film must be. Really impressive. Two other guys we got to talk about. We talked about him, I'm sure by now enough, but Byron Murphy, after his workout, he ran 33-inch vertical, which was the second best among D tackles. He had a 4.87 40, third best among D tackles. His 10-yard split, 1.69, top 4 among D tackles. Broad jump, top 6 among D tackles. What are your thoughts about Byron Murphy? It seems to me the projections are now that he could be the first defensive player off the board potentially if everything falls right after that workout by Byron Murphy.
Yeah, day one, he started it off with a bang, really set the tone for what Texas players were going to do in Indianapolis. And aside from Fisk at Florida State, you're looking at Byron Murphy thinking, I mean, how in the world are any of these defensive linemen going to be moving as well as Byron Murphy? It was just the two of them were in a league of their own in the combination of drills and speed that they were able to bring. Byron Murphy, another thing that was impressive to me, I mean, the 33-inch vertical at 300 pounds. That's a lot of explosiveness. And so, again, it's how early can he go now? But with the combination of what he did and A.D. Mitchell did at the wide receiver groups, the conversation's now reopened about which Longhorn is first off the board now.
That is true. That's a great point. Right now, I'm still going to go with Byron Murphy because I think he actually increased his draft stock. Guys like Matt Miller said, I believe Matt Miller said I had him 13th overall on my big board, and I'm worried he's too low.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There you go. So I'm going to go with Byron Murphy. That's a good question, though, because A.D. Mitchell, that's how much he showed out and showed up, that he's back in that conversation because there will be an early run on wide receivers. What do you think about T'Vondre Sweat? I'm hearing now that T'Vondre Sweat may have dropped his draft stock a little bit after showing up 366. He's one of the biggest human beings in the history of the NFL Combine. I think he was going for a bit of shock and awe. I thought he looked good running considering his size, but there aren't many success stories in the NFL, period, of a guy more than 360 pounds on the D tackle position. It's just not. So I have faith that he's going to end up being a starter in the NFL, but there are not a lot of success stories of guys being that big and then their game translating to the league. That's why people thought he would come in a little bit lighter. And I'm going to say everybody came in lighter except T'Vondre Sweat. Everybody. Pretty much off the board, right?
No, he was the second heaviest combine attendee in the history of the combine. So that goes ahead and gives you an idea of where he sat. But the drills, the testing measurables did not do him any favors. I think that was kind of the expectation coming in. Again, he is 366 pounds, but then you watch him with the eye test and the way that he went through bags, through cones, around the circle, running the circle there. He looked good. I mean, it's, again, the debate of eye test versus analytics. And what does that tell you? He looked good at, running 5.27 at 366 pounds is not an easy task. The athleticism is there, but I do think teams want him about 10 or maybe even 15 pounds lighter than what he is. Again, I think that was a bit of an issue in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. That's why you didn't see him weigh in officially. But one thing that went well for him is Bo Limmer, the Arkansas center that went up against drills. Guess who had the highest bench press of any offensive lineman at the combine this week?
Wow.
And guess who T'Vondre Sweat split in half almost in those one-on-one drills? Bo Limmer. So if there's questions about the strength, there shouldn't be, because he just did that to the strongest offensive lineman in pads about a month ago. It's all about, will a team take him early enough that you're thinking, yeah, okay, this isn't a drop as what we are originally thinking now.
That's a nice factoid, CJ. Damn, you should be doing promotion for my man T'Vondre Sweat, dude. You need to drop that factoid off with all the NFL scouts in case they hadn't picked it up, because that was money, my man. That's why CJ Vogel is. That's why he's the real MVP around here. All right, one more. One more breakdown here. Is that not going to take us long? Jordan Whittington. He was there. He showed up at the combine, but did not participate because he was still dealing with an injury that he was nursing from the Senior Bowl. What are your thoughts about Jordan Whittington? I mean, this, the same thing I think that helps Ryan Watts out, helps him out too. It's not a very deep draft toward the end of the draft. It's a very talented draft at the start of it, at the beginning of it, first 2 rounds, maybe even 3 rounds. But after that, that's going to be a significant, precipitous drop off in talent because there's not a lot of underclassmen in this draft who have declared. That could end up helping Jordan Whittington. Will he be healthy enough at pro day to show everybody that he is explosive, that he's a guy that's got great short area quickness, that he's a guy who has the physical measurables to back up the few plays of explosivity that we've seen from him on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so 300 players get invited to the combine each year, and about 260, 250, depending on compensatory picks, end up getting drafted during the draft. Where are you with Jordan Whittington in terms of getting into that top 250? Right now, I think he's right on the outside. And again, he just hasn't been able to help himself because of the lingering health issues there. That it's been so unfortunate because we know the type of heart and passion that he brings to the football field. And again, Longhorns, if you talk to anybody in that locker room, they'll tell you right away, there's no one they'd probably rather play with than Jordan Whittington. So exactly. The pro day, again, getting fully healthy there and putting on a show is going to be massive for any chance to squeak into that top 250 for a team to take a shot on him. Again, it might be one of those Brock Purdy situations where you see a team very, very late in the draft just say, we know other teams are going to want him in terms of being an undrafted free agent. We're going to take him in that late 7th round just so that we know we get to have the rights to him. That might be what you end up seeing more so than taking a shot on him as a result of what he's done since the football season ended. I'm interested to see what he's able to do in the pro day because, again, he did put up 18 reps on the bench press, which was good for, tied for 5th of wide receivers in Indianapolis. The strength is there. The heart is there. Will the health be? That's the question mark.
Yeah, that is the question mark. It has always been the issue for Jordan Whittington, right? Finally made a season completely healthy for the Longhorns and made big plays, was a huge impact player, carried the torch of culture for him this season. And yet now the season's over when he's got a test for teams. He can't really stay healthy enough to showcase the skill set. I'm rooting for Jordan Whittington. I think we all are. I'm not sure he gets drafted. I think the injury concerns, along with now being injured during this process, I don't think a team's going to take a chance on him. He's going to be a priority free agent for a team, in my opinion. And that's just the reality of the way. By the way, you can make an NFL roster as an undrafted free agent, and practice squads now have been expanded, and you can stay on there longer. So he's got a shot to make a roster. I think he's going to do it the hard way, the hardest way, which is as an undrafted free agent. If it's possible for a program to win the NFL Combine, I'm not just saying this because I'm a little biased towards Texas. No homer. I think Texas won the NFL Combine. I think they did as a program. I really do. I think everybody thought it was going to be Michigan. I heard way more talk about Texas than I did about Michigan at the NFL Combine. So just throwing that out there. All right, before we get out of here, let's thank John Donovan once again because we are very, very proud that he is sponsors Talkin Ball. He is the president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John is a proud Texas Ex's Life member, and his wife and all 6 of John's siblings are also proud UT grads, lifetime Longhorn. Johns has also served over 15 years as a Texas Ex's board member and is a certified financial planner who has spent over 30 years providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to all of his clients. So it is this long history and deep connection to the University of Texas that explains why John has dedicated his firm to providing total wealth management for Texas alumni, exes, employees, family, and friends. John wants to remind all Texans that, hey, you got election day coming up March 5th. So please get out and vote. We need to keep Texas strong and independent, and your vote matters. Likewise, your vote is the only one that matters when it comes to your own financial future. So John Donovan would like to offer all on Texas football family members a free 90-minute consultation to explore how the Longhorn Wealth Team can help you make the right vote with your finances to ensure your own financial future is strong and independent. So what are you waiting for? Give John Donovan a call and his Longhorn Wealth Management Team because you got nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's a free 90-minute consultation. 972-707-4900. That's 972-707-4900. Or visit longhornwealth.net to take advantage of the free 90-minute consultation to explore how they can help you achieve true financial independence, much like my man Xavier Worthy just secured with his record NFL Combine 40-yard dash. You're damn right about that, John. Thank you to John Donovan and all of his support. Thank you to everybody out there watching and listening. Thank you, CJ. You are the man, brother. Hey, don't work so hard, man. You're working too hard. You're working way too hard, man. I don't know when you sleep.
Hey, we're just talking ball, Rod. This is nothing better.
No, man. Hey, man, we appreciate the time, CJ, and all the knowledge, man. You are fantastic. So until next time, for an edition of Talkin Ball, I'm Rod Babers. It's my man, CJ Vogel. Hook 'em.